Hello.
Gotta stay hydrated.
In this dehydrated ass world, drink your water and mind your business. Especially this week with all these damn planets and Aries and shit. Frightening stuff, but also, fear's a choice. Hi, I'm Djérae, and this is Retro Reflections, a weekly video essay by the Underground Rainbow Experiment, illuminating how we create ourselves, our belonging, and our freedom. So what does it mean to create your own belonging? Well, I think there is a word for it, which starts with an A. Can you guess what it is? Audacity. It's seeing the rules sometimes and saying, well, you know what? That feels stupid. I know I belong here. I know I belong here because I feel it in my spirit, period. Not based on what you do, not based on what you have to offer. None of that. Did you get that full body yes? If yes, then it's probably right. And if no, then let it go. Don't force what don't fit, but also don't walk away from your blessing because people don't think you're worthy of it. So anyway, I've struggled with creating belonging in the past. This comes from a space of definitely people pleasing, which is something that, is a survival tactic. But here's where the accountability kicks in. After a certain point of awareness specifically, these birds are doing a lot. I understand that they're getting freaky and all in their freaky deaky springtime. They doing a lot. Pussy popping and parlaying they. Okay, anyway, this comes from me people pleasing, which is something I did for survival, right? And while I do have grace for myself in that, and how I chose to show up in those moments to survive, because, I say chose because I believe that even though I have grace for myself in how I had to, or felt I had to show up to survive, to maintain that, once you no longer have to, right? And you have that safety and that space to be aware of what's happening, then it is on you to fix it, regardless of what happened. Fortunately and unfortunately, it's a hard pill, babe. A very inconvenient one too. But you do have to swallow it at some point of your life to get up. Girl, get up! Anyway, once you have that awareness, you are then responsible, right, for how you hold that thing that you do. People pleasing ended up with me watering a lot of myself down for people, places, and things and situations that I frankly outgrew very quickly, or that I knew weren't the best fit, but were the fit that I had in the moment. It was just kind of that feeling of, I can make it work, I know this can work, it should work, it works for all these other people, but to be frank, it just didn't work for me. And so shit fell apart because it wasn't true. It wasn't real. Maybe it felt real to someone else, but for me, it wasn't real, right? And so I was building essentially on unstable ground. So what I was doing, I think, especially in my early 20s, I'll say, I think it was something I learned from childhood and held in childhood, and because there were some points in my life where I did have to show up in a way that was, in order to stay safe, was more subdued, where there was no neutrality, where there was no peace. I had to become that and create that for myself, and felt that I had to create it for other people around me, right? I also thought, as someone who was always a very empathetic baby, just felt a lot of feelings all the time. Coming up, I would try to keep it cute and keep it level, but internally, deep, it was always that deep, okay? I was a sensitive little one. I thought that to create belonging meant togetherness, right? I thought it meant being within and melding into a group. And as someone who's worked in community for a long time, what I think I had messed up when I was younger, right? I had this concept that collectivism meant that I thought how everybody else thought, that I would want what everybody else wanted. What I thought was required was groupthink. And to be very, very real, that's low-key, either directly or indirectly, what I was being told. And honestly, I'll say up until maybe 2024, early last year even, I definitely held that notion of, to be together, to be with people, means that I need to show up in a way that is not as independent as I would like to be. Because if we need to do things together and we need to do things collectively to change the world, I need to show up in this way. No. What I found that I was doing was really melding into these expectations that people were saying that they wanted independent thinkers, but really in their actions, what you could see was that they wanted groupthink, right? And so what happened towards the end there, I think definitely towards 2025, was I would start asking questions, right? And what I started to find was if a place couldn't hold questioning, right? If a question asked in earnest is all it takes for something to fall over, right? And I'm not saying coming at anybody crazy. I'm not saying calling people different things, all this stuff. I'm saying if the question is all it takes for someone to be thrown off their center, or a space to be thrown off of its center, it was gonna get thrown off anyway, baby, whether you ask that question or not, right? So to my people who be saying the quiet part out loud, who be asking all the questions, just know that if it can't take the truth, it wasn't meant to last. Sorry, not sorry. But I've found out as I've grown and done a lot of intentional work, especially in this area, because it's always felt like a sore point in my life. You know, on the spectrum, didn't know for a long time. You grow up as a black child, a black girl child specifically, it is very easy for folks just to look at you and be like, oh, you're just being difficult, or you have an attitude, or, you know, I was quiet, right? Because for me, when I would speak, you know, it was very clear that I was weird. And so I just found it easier after a certain point not to speak too much as someone who was on the spectrum, because I just didn't feel like dealing with all that. And I was like, they make fun of me anyway. Did it click to me that they were gonna make fun of me regardless? No, right? Do I wish that little me realized that? Yes, but I was very small. So much grace to that little one. However, when you show up as you truly, like all of the things that you hide or have an inclination to hide, when you show up in those things, people naturally just from fucking nowhere will meet you as you are. Like you'll find your people, but you have to be yourself first fully so that you can actually see what can hold you. So to create belonging first means to create belonging in oneself and set the tone, right? This is what I accept. This is what I do not accept. I like this. I don't fucks with this. Doesn't matter what the labels say. Doesn't matter what people are like, oh, you're supposed to show up in this way, this way, this way, this way. It don't fucking matter what it say on the box. Do you like it or not? And if the answer is no, then sit with that truth, even if you don't know where you're going to go from here. For me, stepping into gender affirming care was very difficult because, one, so much fear mongering. So much fear mongering. It was actually fine. What I was told as someone who has always wanted to see the world, has always been curious, has always liked to go here, there, everywhere, was told as someone who loves all of those things was, this will limit your ability to go where you want to go. And as a singer, to do what you want to do, right? Told it was unnatural, all of these things. And one of like the biggest things that kept me there was like, oh, I don't know what comes after this. Like what happens? Like what's gonna happen to me? If my voice changes, what's gonna happen to me? Shit, if not even talking about transitions, but what's gonna happen if I decide to just up and leave and go across the country in 2 weeks? What's going to happen if I break up with this person? What's gonna happen if I leave this job? What's gonna happen? Girl, you don't know. But the thing is, you weren't gonna know anyway. So I truly believe that people know what they need, right? This is something I definitely learned as an organizer, and I'm very, very grateful to the folks I was in space with at the time. What I learned was this understanding that, you know, people know what they need. You have the ideas that you have, and those are great, and you can give it to them, but like when you start really sitting with people and having them think about what they experience, right, and what they want to experience, when you ask people to imagine, people come up with some really cool shit, life-changing, world-changing shit, but then they look up into reality, right, and they're like, but how would this happen? There's no way that this is possible. How? We would need this. Make a to-do list and get over freaking whelmed. What I say to folks, and what I would say to folks I was working with in my base, right, is like you're not going to have all the steps. You're never going to have all the steps. That list is never going to come. The plan is never, it'll appear, but the thing is, it may not appear when you're in a space and around certain energies that depend on you not seeing and standing in your truth and standing in your power, right? It's not gonna come. Sometimes literally you will have to step away so that you can receive everything that you're supposed to receive. So that, think about it this way, back to people pleasing, right? There are some spaces I had to please people in, or that was my ass. That was my life, right? But when you remove yourself from that space, there is a sense of relief that comes. And that's also a great sign. If you are relieved when you leave a space, oh girl, that should tell you about enough. When you feel that relief, your body, it's a somatic thing. Your body tells you, we're safe now. And what happens when safety occurs? Creativity comes back. Your creativity can return full force. I think for me, in situations where I have not felt safe, creativity it was barely there. But when it was strained, it was hard, it felt restricted. I was just focused on surviving. But when I got to a space that was out of survival, just basic needs, right, met, a whirlwind of ideas, of truths, of all these things, of noticings that I just would have never gotten had I not stepped away, appeared. And so what does that tell us, right? That tells us that sometimes the first step is you. Sometimes, most of the time, for me at least, that first step is all you really need to do for everything else to meet you halfway. I'll also say, in this context, right, and in the context of the Underground Rainbow Experiment, this path, this thing that I've created, I don't even know what to call it, because I'm like, yes, technically it's a business, yes, technically it's a space, but really what it is a space of refuge, one that I did not have when I was younger. The reason, one of the things, if you look on our website, right, the vision for this space is the network of live work artist houses, right? Similar to the Underground Railroad. I was born and raised in Maryland. I got all the Harriet Tubman things, right? I was obsessed with her as a kid. She, and still am now, because the more I learn about her, the more obsessed I get, because I'm like, hold on. This lady was disabled, had, I think, epilepsy, was tiny, was malnourished, was all of these things, but still had this understanding of resistance in herself. Even as a child, I really recommend Night Flyer. I forgot the author's name, but the book is called Night Flyer. It's a book about Harriet Tubman, and not in this sense of like deifying her, but really going into and looking at how she utilized resistance in tiny, tiny ways ever since she was damn near 3. And strategically too, my God. Anyway, she is quite an ancestor. Get into it. The Underground Railroad is of course the prototype for what I'm doing. Duh. That name had a reason. I was scared of that reason. It was very clear actually when I first got it. I was scared. I think what I'll say is I was trying to figure it out. Girl, if I really think about it, I was clear. It was clear as day. I saw it. I didn't want to accept what it was, right? Back to it. Because it was so big. It was such a terrifying concept. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I ain't none of those things. So what we talking about here? Little did I know. When I found and created a space for myself, home, in myself, for myself, that I could be safe in, oh my God, all the truths came out. Don't be hard on yourself about the fact that safety doesn't exist for you yet. For us as Black people, more often than not, safety is not something that is really created for us, right? It's something that I'll say this, if we ever find it, it's something we've built floor to ceiling, right? It's something that's held in traditions. It's something that's held in the spiritual. It's something that's held with each other quietly, still to this day. There are things that all these folk out here, they don't know what the hell we're saying. We know what we're saying though. And there's a reason for that. Because we've never really been safe in this country. And if you feel safe, that's beautiful. You may be carrying some privilege, right? Which isn't a bad thing. I carry it too. Safety is a spectrum. And if you're in this spectrum where you're like, I could generally say I'm safe, that's cool, right? Don't blame yourself for what hasn't come out because you're not safe yet, or you don't feel safe yet, whether that's in yourself or in the world. Don't hate on yourself for that. There is a certain threshold of safety that has to be present for you to even start getting into that. So For me, it took damn near 10, 15 years. Dare I say 20? I'm 28. To get to a place where I feel safe. It's emotional safety. It's physical safety. It's all the types of safety that has to really be present for you to be able to step into your fullness, to your full potential, right? And that's a part of why for Underground Rainbow Experiment, we want to create a system of live work artist houses. Because one of the biggest things I see for creatives, especially creatives who are black folks who come into this country any way, shape, or form, whether you were born here or whether you immigrate here, there is something that happens within institutions of art, fine art, that more often than not cannot really hold blackness. Definitely can't hold queer and transness, but can barely hold blackness, right? These disciplines as they stand now. So arts education for me is always something I've been passionate about. I began teaching when I was, I believe, 20. Yeah, I was 20 years old. And I was politely asked to leave Howard's Jazz Voice program. And also ran out of money. So there wasn't really, we wasn't going back. It was just stopped on all angles, right? And basically was just really depressed because I was like, my God, I did well in the classes. I studied my ass off. Like, what is wrong? Like, what was wrong? And it went back to compliance, right? Like, I wasn't someone who wanted to be in a choir. I was very clear. I was like, I want a career as a solo artist. I have a band for hire, but I know what I want to do. I know what kind of songs I want to make. Now, did I always embrace the type of songs I wanted to make? No. I thought I had to contort. I thought I had to fit. But I knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do with this. And so I was asked to leave. You know, I was showing up as my full self, and I was asked to leave. And what I ended up doing was still talking to a piano teacher of mine. I bartered. She's Dr. Walwyn. We recently talked, but she's such a blessing because, my God, the way I would have left music if not for her, completely stopped, right? I bartered with, you know, I'm pretty good at putting a website together, doing like business admin things, you know. I offered my support in exchange for free piano lessons. And so what ended up happening was I was getting real depressed, and she was like, hey, go teach these kids. I was like, I'm barely good at piano. She's like, you know a goddamn scale. This a friend of mine. They have 2 children. They're a very sweet family. They're a young family. Just go teach them. They have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. You don't have to teach too much. You got it. I was like, okay. So I go, and these children light up my whole life. It's easy to forget how heavy or how much you're carrying until you go around kids and you see how light they are. And it's like, God damn. Okay. And it's almost just, it was such a relief. So from that, they introduced me to their parents, other parents. They were like going to one of those charter schools in DC. I was driving around the damn Beltway from Laurel. For those of y'all who know that drive, it was a good 45-minute bop every day I'm week to teach these kids, right? Did it make a whole lot of sense? No, but I needed to do it, right? So I taught these kids. I taught, started teaching other kids in that community. And that teaching got me to a place where I got enough under my belt to become a teaching artist at the small organization when I transferred to Coppin State in Baltimore City. And I was able to create my own curriculum and teach Black children, honestly, about their own music. And in my experience teaching, right, in Baltimore City schools, I also noticed how little that they received in public schools for arts education. I did not realize how much of a gift it was to go to a school with a fully funded music program. I shit you not, I had those kids banging on desks because there were no drums. There were no maracas, there wasn't shit. If you were lucky, you got a school in a space with a music room that maybe had some instruments that you weren't allowed to touch, mind you, because they were technically property of that teacher, right? Because everybody paid for their own shit, so rightfully so, they didn't want random ass people who they did not know touching their shit, right? That they have to buy, mind you, with their own money. This led me to, one, getting to a place where I was like really depressed because I was like, I don't feel like I could do anything. Correct, the system was built where I couldn't. So what did I do? I got pissed. I went back into nonprofit spaces, leaned into the business space, and ended up working in a space called Arts Education in Maryland Schools, where I had the space because I had an amazing boss who gave me, she was the first Black boss that I had. And I was so excited and I was so happy and I was so grateful because she let me do this research about why. It was this question that was being asked over and over and over again. Well, why is there inequity in Maryland schools? And what it ended up being was because of slavery. Literally, since the time of enslavement, laws had barely moved in regard to who got what kind of funding after the Civil War. So it was about who lived where, right? And it was also about the relation they had to who won, right? So there were areas of Maryland that were more leaning toward the Confederacy, that were less funded and stayed underfunded, right? Stay underfunded to this day. Baltimore has always been a city with free Black people. Guess who didn't get funded? Okay. So, right, understanding that these systems are very well designed and working perfectly, right? I ended up getting into organizing. So I'm an organizer because I was a pissed off teacher. That's what I did with my energy. Coming back to Underground Rainbow Experiment. Where I did find refuge though, and access to craft was in community. It was by going to jam sessions, was by going to spaces online and people who were doing stuff for free, was by bartering with teachers and people I wanted to learn from, was just trying it and making things myself. And even though, you know, it may not have hit as hard as I wanted to, it was a step in the right direction, right? And so all of these steps, all of these things have gone into the type of programming I'm wanting to generate for Underground Rainbow Experiment and programming I've built in other places. The spaces that I aim to create in Underground Rainbow Experiment and have created, because look on our website, we have done some things, we have created some spaces, whether they be events, event series, little workshops, all of those things, have ensured that people have the space to not only define themselves, but define their craft, right? That's something that these current institutions, people who hold art in high regard, high art, low art, them high art folks don't always like a lot of, one, I'll say interdisciplinariness, which I find a lot of Black folks really sit in. Black, especially queer and trans folks, like we be doing everything. It's not just visual art. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not just a visual artist. I also create sound. I also create video. I do all of these things, and it's hard to define. And those definitions, the ability to define oneself, right? That's the make or break for these systems. If it's not definable, we don't want it, right? So this is a space for the undefinable. This is a space for, I don't know what the hell it is right now, but I know it's something, and I'm gonna follow this inquiry, right? It's space to hold inquiries that, unfortunately, this society does not make space for. Whether that be in how we present, how we show up and embody ourselves in the world, or how we create, right? Underground Rainbow Experiment exists to create space for that. I'll leave you with a few questions. In this moment, where everything is topsy-turvy, what do you need to change so that you can be who you are called to be? What needs to go? What needs to stay? What is simply being called to evolve? Number 2, is there an identity that needs to shift? Is it a label that you give yourself? Is it a place that's utilizing your energy? Is it an entire field? Is it a way of being? Birds fuck with it. You hear them? They fuck with it. Yeah. Is it how you're doing things? Sometimes it's not the what, it's the how. And goddamn it, sometimes it's the why. You may want to check your 5 W's and I don't know what they call the H. I don't remember how they put that the H in there, how they put how in there. Anyway. Elementary school teacher, someone let me know, I forgot. But is it a process that no longer makes you feel fulfilled? Is it a way of doing things that leaves you feeling empty when it's all said and done? Right? Is it serving you? And if it's not serving you, let it go. It don't gotta be that way. From the biggest to the smallest things, it don't have to be like that if you don't want it to be, right? And if there's a space in your life that you're feeling constricted, then it probably needs to go. Because let me tell you something. Now is the time for evolution. Something not working is not failure. Please reframe that. Something not working out may just mean it doesn't work for you. And if something doesn't work for you, as long as you have breath, my love, you have choice. Now, you may not have the best choices. Those choices may be really shitty. Those choices may lead you to one destination. And you may have an option of how you get there. My God. And it may be sucky to notice that, to see that, to feel that, to live in that, to live in a limited space. But you do have a choice. And those choices, as you get more and more safe in your life, will get better. It gets better, I'm so sorry. But those choices will start to look a bit more appealing the safer you get. The more you choose yourself, right? The more you create that safety that no one can create for you. For those of us looking for it, it's something you create. That's another hard pill. A lot of hard pills today. But safety is something you create. So, that being said, having to step away, having to change, having to adapt is not failure. It is evolution. It's what we do in this life, right? Close the chapter. It's okay, baby. There's more on the other side. We need you as you. We need you saying all the things that you can't say at that job, in that church, in that school. We need you being you in your fullness. Not this watered down bullshit, not who you were told to be, you. All right? That is what this moment in history is calling for right now. The youest you can be, my love. I'm Djérae, and this has been Retro Reflections, Episode 2. Thank you for joining me. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Goodbye, my darling. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching Retro Reflections, an ongoing video essay series by the Underground Rainbow Experiment. If you liked what you heard and what we're about, sign up for our email list or donate to our programming for Black, trans, and gender nonconforming artists at www.undergroundrainbowexperiment.org, or click the link below in the description. And remember, we create ourselves, we create our belonging, and we create our freedom.